Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Sudan warring parties sign deal on aid access in Jeddah. Israeli occupation forces continue airstrikes on Gaza Strip. And Turkey announces extending Black Sea grain deal, and Moscow warns of quitting the deal over obstacles to its grain and fertilizer exports. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. The countries of the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf affirmed that they are anxiously following up with the developments in Sudan, calling warring parties to resort to restraint and peaceful dialogue for the welfare of the people of Sudan and the recovery of the Sudanese economy. This came in a speech delivered by Councillor Fahad bin Sulaiman al-Kharousi, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Sultanate of Oman to the United Nations and international organizations in Geneva on behalf of the GCC countries before the special session on the situation of human rights in Sudan. The Councillor Fahad al-Kharousi added that the current talks led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United States of America between the warring parties in Jeddah is welcome to establish a truce and humanitarian aids. The Councillor also welcomed all regional and international initiatives that aim to end the fight in Sudan, calling the international community to encourage dialogue and convey positive messages that help reach to a political agreement. Sudan's warring parties are continuing to hold talks in the Saudi coastal city of Jeddah. The talks, the first since the fighting erupted, are a part of the Saudi-US initiative meant to stop the fighting. The U.S. State Department announced that representatives of the two warring parties have signed a declaration late yesterday recognizing their responsibilities to facilitate humanitarian action to meet the emergency needs of civilians. The statement said the talks would now focus on arranging an effective ceasefire of up to approximately 10 days to facilitate humanitarian efforts. The rivals agreed to enable the safe delivery of humanitarian assistance, the restoration of essential services, the withdrawal of forces from hospitals and clinics, and respectful burial of the dead, the announcement said. The most violent confrontation in months between Israeli occupation forces and Palestinians continued for a fourth straight day as Israeli warplanes struck targets in the Gaza Strip and Palestinians fired rockets towards Jerusalem and southern Israel. Those were no immediate reports of casualties on either side today as foreign mediators pressed ahead with efforts to reach a ceasefire. The past few days of fighting have killed 33 Palestinians in Gaza and a 70-year-old man in central Israel. Over 100 Palestinians have been wounded, the Palestinian Health Ministry reported. German Finance Minister Christian Lindner today said he hoped politicals in the United States would come to a grown-up decision on talks to raise the federal debt ceiling, warning there are risks to the global economy if they do not. Speaking on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Japan, Lindner said the global economic outlook was still fragile and hoped that parties would not be swayed by the short-termism of partisanship. Lindner's remarks underscore concerns as a meeting between the U.S. President Joe Biden and lawmakers scheduled for today back in Washington was postponed. Finance leaders of the group of 7 G7 advanced economies are meeting in Japan to discuss issues including how far they want to go in steps to counter China, as well as how to support Ukraine and enforce sanctions on Russia. Speaking to reporters alongside Lindner, Bundesbank chief Joachim Nagel said the European Central Bank would continue to raise interest rates. Parties to the Black Sea Grain Pact are nearing a deal to extend its stock after talks between Ukrainian, Russian, Turkish, and United Nations officials, Turkey's Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said today. Russia has threatened to quit the agreement on May 18th over obstacles to its grain and fertilizer exports, and the four parties discussed UN proposals to extend the deal yesterday. The parties are approaching an agreement on an extension of the grain agreement period, Akar said in a statement released by the Defense Ministry on today. 2 days of talks in Istanbul had appeared to end without Russian agreement on an extension. The UN and Turkey brokered the Black Sea Agreement in July last year to help tackle a global food crisis that has been worsened by Moscow's war in Ukraine. At the same time, the UN agreed to help Moscow facilitate its own agriculture shipments. The Kremlin said early yesterday that Russian President Vladimir Putin could speak with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan at short notice if needed regarding an extension of the deal, but that there were no such plans yet. Still to come in our news bulletin. A young Omani rock sculptor converts plain rocks into exquisite sculptures. His Excellency Dr. Khalfan bin Saeed Al Shaili, Minister of Housing and Urban Planning, held an extensive meeting with members of the Municipal Council in Al Dakhiliya Governorate. The meeting came in the context of initiating dialogue between the Ministry and the Council in matters concerning urban development in Al Dakhiliya Governorate. The meetings highlighted the Ministry's project in the Governorate, including Nizwa Mega Project, Manah Futuristic City Project, and Suruh project, which will be carried out in a number of wilayas across the country. Follow-up meetings are expected to be held with other governmental institutions to implement projects in Al Dakhiliya Governorate. On the other hand, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning signed 8 land usufruct agreements for various uses in a number of the wilayas of the Governorate with an investment volume of approximately 2 million Omani Riyals. To mark 50 years of continued relations between the Sultanate of Oman and Austria, the photo gallery was opened in the Sultanate of Oman, including photos from both countries. 40 photographic works that depict stories and details of the bilateral relations between the two countries was in the photo gallery under the theme Oman-Austria, 50 Years of Diplomacy. The photo gallery was a collaboration between the Embassy of the Sultanate of Oman in Austria and the Embassy of Austria in Muscat. The collaboration was carried out by 2 photographers who visited each other's countries to take photos in an act to show harmony between nature and men and between modernity and heritage. Stone carving is one of the oldest forms of art. Sultan Al-Shaybani, a young Omani rock sculptor, turned the hardest of rocks into exquisite sculptures. More details are in the following report.
Sultan bin Muhammad Al-Shaybani, a young Omani rock sculptor from the Wilayah of Adam in the Dakhiliya Governorate, found in the diverse types of rocks and stones available in the Omani environment an inspiration for his love for the craft of rock carving. He carefully chooses suitable rocks to carve on them.
كانت بدايتي أن أنا أجمع الأحجار.
Initially, I collected stones, tried to identify them and checked out their names. It was a bit difficult because they were very hard stones and also needed special tools to carve them. But thank God, as you can see now, I was able to make different sculptures.
With deep concentration, precision, and determination, Sultan carves in the hardest of rocks to turn them into exquisite sculptures of various types and shapes.
ما كل الأحجار اللي هي تصلح للنحت.
Not all stones or rocks are suitable for carving. Some types like jasper and granite are better for carving. The harder the rock, the longer it takes to carve, shape and polish it. I do not add any artificial colors. I keep the natural colors.
His love for the craft is evident in the products he makes, on which he expresses his creativity and artistry. With such potential, he aspires to see his products in the market.
نأمل في المستقبل أن يكون في تسويق.
I hope in the future that there will be some marketing for my products, whether to tourists or in the local markets. I plan to have a place with more modern tools to carve new shapes and expand in this field.
By shaping rocks in different items and accessories, Sultan al-Shaybani proves that where there is a will, there is a way. صالح بن خلفان الرحبي, ولاية of Adam, الداخلية, Governorate.
This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Sudan warring parties sign deal on aid access in Jeddah. Israeli occupation forces continue airstrikes on Gaza Strip. And Turkey announces extending Black Sea grain deal, and Moscow warns of quitting the deal over obstacles to its grain and fertilizer exports. With that, we come to the end of tonight's bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night and have a great weekend.
Sultan bin Muhammad al-Shaybani, a young